Those bathed in light often forget they're surrounded by darkness. And for the Soviets, this ray of hope that they could reforge the Comintern only made them blind to the truth. The forsaking of the US theater, its territories rapidly retaken by the Epsilon army, the returning of the prisoners, the brutal and hastily execution of which accosted the lives of many mind-controlled Russians. Then come the soldiers who participated in the defense of Singapore, fiercely repelling their enemies to safeguard the peace talks. The investments are substantial, but the returns could not even amount to a drop in the bucket. The negotiation failed. Simple as that. An appalling outcome, especially to the Chinese and Soviet commanders who lost many good men to this battle. Perhaps even Yuri was a little peeved by this development. All that work on his part, and it was never needed in the first place. Truth is, their vision of a Comintern reborn never had a real chance. Such an alliance, like all relationships, will require effort from both sides to be maintained. But as the Soviets would soon come to realize, the Chinese leadership never gave it a real chance. Concurrent to the events of Singapore, Krukov and Reznov had been delving into other matters behind enemy lines. Still reeling from the events of the psychic beacon in Xizang, the mysterious incident that kick-started the deterioration of their relationship with China. The two Soviet colonels had embarked on a secretive mission to investigate just how much influence the Psychor has in these regions. Russian and Confederation territories aside, Yuri would have no doubt infiltrated the lands of other countries in the past 2 years. If the peace treaty with the Chinese is successfully signed, then they would need to help their new allies root out these elusive foes here as well. What they would come to find, though, turned out in a completely different and worse direction. Following the worrisome message of one of their agents in the area, Krukov and Reznov had traced their way to a hidden facility in the rural regions of Xinjiang. Having been previously imprisoned in said facility, the agent claimed that the Chinese here weren't aware in the slightest of the negotiations being conducted in Singapore, and seemed laser-focused instead on the research of cybernetic weapons. Indeed, the colonels ran into several unidentified soldiers on their way to rendezvous with the agent. Barring their conical hats, these soldiers bore an uncanny resemblance to Volkov, with cybernetic parts protruding all over their bodies and comparable durability to boot. With the help of the agent, the duo managed to infiltrate the atom heart inside the facility, snatching several critical documents before the Chinese researchers were able to delete the data, and the details contained within are spicy, to say the least. Ever since the capture of Volkov and Chitskoy 2 years ago, the Chinese research division had been using the duo's data to conduct their very own cybernetic research. Headed by their chief scientist Yunru, this program proceeded at an unprecedented rate, with an exorbitant amount of resources poured into it, developing several new prototypes at various stages of operability. In fact, it seems to be at such a level that they might already be mass-producing these new weapons that could have been deployed during the defense of Singapore. Had that been done, the Soviets wouldn't have suffered as many losses as they did that day. Was this entire thing a setup? Were the Chinese soldiers in Singapore in on it as well? Or were they too clueless to the fact that their leaders had concealed such advanced weapons and threw their lives away in pointless bloodshed? In the end, the Chinese never wanted to sincerely join forces or resources. They still consider the Soviets as enemies and are probably readying themselves to challenge the Union once again by producing weapons so close to their borders. If they are left to their own devices, then it could attack the Soviets as soon as they defeat Yuri and declare themselves the leaders of the Comintern. Worst case scenario, they'll lose their lands as soon as they regain them to a full-scale invasion force. This program cannot be allowed to continue. Best case scenario, it finds new life in the hands of the Soviets, but the Chinese development has to end right here and right now. Based on the data retrieved by the Russian colonels, one such research facility dedicated to this sector of their R&D division was revealed to the Soviets, and a task force under the command of the Soviet general is immediately sent to lay waste to the complex. That being said, the Soviets can't exactly afford an all-out war with China at the moment, but that problem seems to have taken care of itself. As for some unknown reason, possibly to keep the program a secret, the local Chinese guards stationed in these facilities possess quite the outdated intel, evidenced by the fact that one of the soldiers at the first facility thought the colonels were members of the waning separatist movement. To exploit this, several Chinese units were smuggled in for the task force, disguising themselves as a ragtag group of insurgents looking to sabotage the facility, their primary target being these nanocentrifuges, responsible for manufacturing the high-tech materials needed for the new weapons. Trudging through the harsh terrain and stormy weather, the strike team clashed against more of those cyborg soldiers, proving their suspicion of these weapons being in mass production stage. Not only that, but several Chinese soldiers are also spotted in what appears to be a type of exoskeleton armor. A few of them were even captured using the Dracul prison vehicles, allowing the Soviets to study these exosuits more closely. operated by mere footmen yet possessing the durability and firepower of a lightly armored vehicle. If the Chinese are to arm each and every one of their basic conscripts with such equipment, this alone would be enough to shake up the power dynamics between the two. There is no place for such aspirations in the world's socialist revolution, so the Soviets systematically destroyed all of the nanocentrifuges maintained in this facility. The team stole what little data they could scrounge up and burned the rest to a crisp. The operation, successful as it is, did not go without consequences. Seemingly startled by the destruction of their secret complex in Xinjiang, the PRC doubled their border patrols overnight, tightening up security by the utmost as they surveyed every inch of their land. Separatists, infiltrators, all who would harbor ill intent towards China are thoroughly sought and silenced in this major uproar. Because the task force had kept a low profile, suspicion was thankfully not placed on the Soviets just yet. Still, with its army on high alert, the Chinese lands are off limits from any further sabotage for the time being. A shame, as the intel acquired from the Xinjiang facility will be of little use without access to the full Chinese weapons protocol. To accelerate their appropriation of the cybernetic research, another excursion into Chinese lands would have to be made sooner or later. For now, they lay low. Who knows, as slim as the chances may be, perhaps another crack in the Great Wall would present itself in due time. Ever heard of Murphy's Law? It's a saying that anything that is capable of going wrong will go wrong. Despite his string of misfortune lately, it's evident that Yuri has never taken this saying to heart, and thus he has found himself in yet another crisis. With the Chicago amplifier retaken and the Soviet presence in the US largely evacuated, now was the perfect time to refocus his attention on the other fronts. As the Allies' new superweapon is right now the biggest threat to his plans, Yuri has decided to bring his trump card sooner into play. While the proselyte was busy gathering armies and resources for their global uprising, Yuri had been slaving away at their unreachable fortress on the moon, creating something that would allow him to bend the minds of everyone on Earth. Alas, there wasn't enough time to work out all the complications, but its debut cannot be delayed any longer. To allow the Allied remnants to continue their reclamation unimpeded would be a far greater mistake. What remains of the Allies is not the only problem at hand, for their conquest of China's territories have been roadblocked at every turn. Despite their failed alliance with the Soviets, the PRC nevertheless proves to be a formidable foe. Its leadership has adopted a new stratagem that aims to snuff out any turncoats and spies in their midst, effectively negating any attempts to undermine them. With an iron grip on their territories in the Far East, China is, as Yuri has concluded, an enemy best left alone until after his main work is finished, a sentiment seemingly shared by the Chinese, or so he thought. Not long after their failed negotiations, the Chinese main Pacific Fleet, which had long been stationed in their naval base in Leyte Gulf, began heading east towards an unknown destination. The timing of the departure seems too close to be coincidental, but this vulnerability is still an excellent opportunity to collect intel about their activities. A task force under Ron's command was sent to the area, swiftly destroying the base as he infiltrated the intel center. Among the slew of information obtained within was the target of the Chinese Pacific Fleet. As suspected, this was no ordinary sortie, but one aimed squarely at Yuri's soft underbelly, the Epsilon Cosmoport on Totoya Island, the very one that is due to receive a shipment of utmost importance in a matter of hours. Sure, it is possible that the Chinese could have been using their satellites to track Epsilon's shuttles for quite some time now, but reserved as they have been since the start of the war, this move of theirs is highly contradictory to their perceived passivity. What could have emboldened the Chinese into taking offensive action? Did they learn of the truth regarding the fake Midas warheads from the Russians? Or did someone warn them of the cargo's importance? Whatever the reason, fact is the Chinese have caught the Epsilon completely off guard. With little time left until the shuttle's arrival, its landing trajectory can be changed even if they want to. But a mere cosmoport is obviously ill-suited for an invasion of this scale. Its coastal defense is too weak and full of barrels. The situation seemed hopeless, but the proselyte is nevertheless sent in to organize the defenses. Of all those who follow Yuri's ideals, the proselyte is second to none when it comes to making the impossible possible. Despite losing significant coastal grounds to the Chinese fleet, the proselyte used the labyrinthine terrain of the island to his full advantage. Multiple magnetrons were sent to intercept the enemy armor columns, paired with groups of Epsilon elites to counter the enemy aggression. Though effective at first, these makeshift defense lines simply could not account for everything the Chinese threw at them. Several Foxtrot bombardments was all it took for their ground forces to breach through the choke points set up by the proselyte. Endless amounts of paratroopers descended upon the island, circumventing any further attempts at using the terrain itself to Epsilon's advantage. Hamstrung by their lack of resources, the proselyte pulled their forces back into the primary facility, fortifying the perimeter with as many masterminds as he could produce. Keen on overtaking the facility before the shuttle arrives, the vanguard Chinese forces rushed in without a second thought and yielded as soon as they closed in, before promptly being thrown into the grinders for raw materials. Several Gehenna platforms were quickly constructed and used to repel the Kirov airships heading towards the base. With additional resources secured, the proselyte gradually fortified the defenses around the landing zone. But the iron wall is not easily thwarted, and the Chinese EMP attacks proved to be an effective counter against the masterminds. Their forces continued to dwindle, with the enemies aplenty still. But those who remained fought on for their master's glorious cause, their resilience utterly unrelenting, until finally the shuttle arrived. What awaited the Chinese soldiers was more than a simple cargo. It was not of steel, but of flesh and blood. It was the creation, the apple of Yuri's eye, Libra. Stepping into the air charged with the metallic scent of blood, the mysterious woman began massacring the Chinese forces near her with a flurry of explosive darts. Panic ensues, and the Chinese retaliate with a barrage of gunfire, but their bullets were stopped by some sort of kinetic barrier surrounding her, slowing to a halt before falling harmlessly to the ground. Dumbfounded by the sudden appearance of this powerful entity, the Chinese generals signaled their fleet to immediately retreat from the island, only to realize he'd already been surrounded by the Epsilon reinforcements who had just arrived. With their escape route cut off, what remained of the Chinese Pacific Fleet had no choice but to watch hopelessly as Yuri's new super soldiers slaughtered each and every last of them, staining the grounds in vibrant red with a gory dance of blood. Good things come to those who wait, and somehow the Soviets have lended themselves yet another golden opportunity. With the Chicago amplifier overrun, the Reds are now in dire need of China's cybernetic and EMP weaponry to combat Yuri's forces. An army of cyborgs, with their minds unbendable by Epsilon's psychic tricks, will be instrumental in the fight against Yuri. And just as they were wondering how to crack open the Great Wall, the Soviets catch wind of a major deployment by the PRC. Their main fleet in the North Pacific Ocean had just begun making their way down south, most likely towards Solomon or Fiji Islands. While they haven't the slightest idea as to why the Chinese would do this, it has given the Soviets a perfect opportunity to strike. After their retreat from the SSA, the bulk of the Soviet forces that followed their comrade general are on standby exactly in the North Pacific, giving them a clear shot at Shanghai, the location of the Chinese military HQ, the likely nerve center to all of China's military secrets. If they could capture it for themselves, then the Soviets would have complete access to the Chinese tech that they so desperately need. And with a major part of the Chinese fleet away, what better time to strike than now? There's just one tiny problem. A hostile operation such as this would be, for all intents and purposes, a declaration of war to the Chinese, something they most definitely could not afford right now. Why don't we just pretend we're mind-controlled Epsilon forces attacking China? Okay, how do you propose we do that? It's not like we look the part. What are you doing? A purple coat of paint, a simple but effective way to trick the Chinese into believing that this attack is orchestrated by Yuri. At least, it'll be enough to fool the blurry images coming from the satellites. Still, even with major formations of the Chinese fleet away, a significant defense still exists on the East China Sea and the city's perimeter to halt any invasion force. An advanced party including Morales was sent in to disable the coastal defenses, knocking out the EMP control stations guarding the perimeter. With their coastal defenses down, the main invasion force easily breached the city outskirts. The Soviet general quickly seized control of the landing party, conducting a rapid assault gunning straight for the Chinese military HQ.
Incoming transmission.
You have caught me off guard, General, but now I am ready for you.
It seems the paint job fake-out was seen through by Wu Shourong, the Chinese general stationed here. While not fully sure, the mere suspicion that his opponent is the renowned Soviet general whom he'd already suffered a loss from was enough for Wu to call for backup from the surrounding garrisons, pitting everything he has against the invaders. But this knowledge could not save him from defeat, and the Soviet general smashed his way through the Chinese defenders, who for some reason are not equipped with the advanced weapons they had spotted in Xinjiang. China's conventional weaponry ultimately proved insufficient to thwart an attack of this intensity, and their military HQ was swiftly captured by the Soviets.
Tell us everything you know and we'll treat you nicely.
Men? Where are my men? You wouldn't consider letting me go, would you?
Well. It seems there is more to the Chinese secrets after all. While the Soviets won't be able to hold Shanghai for long, the intel acquired from the Chinese military HQ has been most enlightening. The cybernetic weaponry previously thought to be the entirety of the Chinese secret project was in truth only the tip of the iceberg. Their lead scientist, Yunru, had stationed herself with her fellow researchers in the conquered lands of Kashmir to work on a plethora of weapons for the Chinese army. The recovered documents, dubbed the Great Rewrite Plan, state that this branch of their industry, decades in the making, was supposed to give the Chinese their own technologically advanced army, fully divorced from the standard Soviet arsenal, with room for AI assistance baked into every aspect of its designs. Not limited to just EMP or cybernetics, this army would heavily rely on the experimental nanotech they've uncovered previously in Xinjiang, as well as elements of weather manipulation and particle collision tech, apparently provided by the Kanegawa Industries. Several prototypes based on these hybrid technologies have already been created in this facility. Among these is a fully automatic siege machine, designated in the project files as a Centurion siege crawler. This walker is built as an artillery with almost none of the flaws of one, sporting a massive 420mm cannon, firing huge shells at obscene ranges which can decimate entrenched positions with only a few shots. Clearly designed to compensate for the lack of long-range options in the conventional Chinese arsenal. This ultimate siege engine is planned to be used to conquer the Soviet territories in the east, possibly even storming Moscow itself. There is no doubt then. This information confirms the Soviets' suspicion about China's true intentions and the deceptive nature of their ongoing research. Well then, if the Chinese are unwilling to share their hard work, then the Soviets will seize it by force. Since the main Russian forces are still stationed in Shanghai, a secondary task force is hastily assembled instead, rallying as many Confederation units in West Asia as they could to mount an assault on the primary research facility in Kashmir. Contained within is a main hub for all of their developments, referred to as a mainframe, which must be captured to acquire the advanced technologies. A straightforward and clean-cut operation, yet the scenery that greeted the Confederation unit on site would paint a completely different picture. Seemingly aware of the Soviets' intent, Chief Scientist Yunru had tampered with the recon data ahead of time, concealing not only the presence of Chinese reinforcements, but also the existence of hostile Epsilon forces deployed nearby. It is clearly no mere happenstance that Yuri somehow caught wind of this facility. Knowing that the famous Comrade General would likely be the one conducting the Soviet offensive, Yunru appears to have lured the Epsilon forces here in hopes of weakening both enough so that they may be crushed in one blow. Evidently, she has the firepower to do so, as besides the Centurion, she has also concealed a massive stash of tactical nuclear warheads in her facility, currently in the process of being armed onto not one, not two, not three, but 4 tactical nuke silos. Tied down by a slew of fake intel, the Soviet general had to move cautiously with every step, but speed is of the essence, more so than ever in this battle. So the Soviet general opted to collect their own battlefield data with a team of saboteurs, and was also given access to his very own nukes, fighting fire with fire. And since Morales retreated from Shanghai early, he is able to make it in time for this battle as well.
Nothing but cabrons!
After getting a better grasp of the battlefield and pinpointing the location of the enemy outposts nearby, the Soviet general made a beeline towards the primary base, carefully sidestepping all other enemies in the area. Not only armed to the teeth with defenses, the facility also deployed several Iron Dragon units, experimental weapons utilizing particle collision tech to generate a field of sustained and lethal Iron Curtain reaction. Facing against such an impregnable fortress and with their base under constant nuclear attack, even the Soviet general had no choice but to resort to human wave tactics, throwing everything they've got at the defenders until the pressure was simply too much to handle. Little by little, the facility's defense eventually capitulated, with the lives of many Soviets sacrificed in the process. Yet even as they pushed deep into the fortress, the Centurion and Yunru was nowhere to be found. Did the Epsilon forces already destroy the siege engine without the general's knowledge? Is Yunru already killed or captured by them? It's too early to tell, but their work is done. The mainframe is now in their hands, and the Soviet technicians wasted no time searching through the database. In a few moments, the Chinese technology will be theirs to wield.
Incoming transmission.
You will never take my home.
What does she mean by that? The last Midas has revealed itself, not lost as the Soviets had thought, but stolen by the Chinese 2 years ago, hidden under the mainframe. Detonated shortly after the fall of the primary facility, its golden light engulfed everyone in the vicinity. Yunru's, Morales', and the lives of many were taken by this suicidal act, which buried the advanced tech and the Centurion along with them. At least, that's the way it seemed to the Soviets. But Yuri knew better. This explosion is but a part of her elaborate ruse, and so too is the Epsilon's involvement in this game of deception. This all started several days ago, when the Epsilon received intel from an unverified source that China has a sizable facility in Kashmir where they were developing new weapons incorporating the technology acquired from their invasion of Japan. Suspicious, but worth investigating nonetheless, and the Scout Ravens dispatched there soon reported data matching the description from the anonymous intel. Despite the very likely possibility of a trap, it is an opportunity Yuri cannot let slide. He had planned to leave the Chinese well alone, thinking they would focus their efforts on the Russians, but their attack on Totoya Island proves otherwise. China's continuous refusal to back down has left him no choice but to deploy more forces in their country, and the destruction of this research facility would serve as the perfect retribution. It is with that mindset that Yuri ordered his men to assault the Kashmir facility, only for them to be annihilated alongside the Soviets by, of all things, a Midas explosion. A trap it was indeed, but not without repercussions. One always pays dearly for trying to toy with Yuri. While the Soviets are quick to believe everything perished in the explosion due to their negligence, Epsilon's psychic apparatus easily saw through this facade. The Chinese scientist Yunru is still alive, nestled comfortably inside her latest work, the Centurion siege crawler, masking its presence with advanced hacking techniques, as well as manipulation of the seismic activities in the area. While it is curious why the scientist decided to destroy everything in Kashmir in such a disproportionate way, let alone how she got her hands on a Midas bomb to begin with, their priority is to eliminate the Centurion and its designer alongside it. A weapon like that, and anything else Yunru's crew could create, would be far too dangerous to be left unchecked. They've already failed to deal with her once in the past. This error must be corrected. Commanded personally by the proselyte, a separate Epsilon unit has managed to trace the Centurion to a different Chinese base in Kashmir, moving through their underground tunnels to evade the Soviets' attention. Many of them suffered damage to their structural integrity due to the Midas explosion, however, and the Centurion is currently waiting for repairs to be finished with this particular tunnel. This will be their last chance to destroy the walker before it escapes from the Kashmir region. But with the bulk of their troops gone in the explosion, the Epsilon forces are at a disadvantage here. Separated by a river, the Epsilon armored vehicles could not reach the Centurion in time, forcing the proselyte to employ unorthodox tactics. The largest Chinese airbase in the region is situated on this side of the river, heavily defended, but with enough resources and equipment to assemble a squadron of foxtrots, which can then be used to rain fire down upon the Centurion.
Greetings. The Soviets are out of the game. I think it's time you were too.
Several drillers surfaced with reinforcements, delivering Epsilon's new infantry onto the battlefield. Named the Stalkers, these hulking behemoths encased in metal suits are the newest products of Epsilon's maturing genetic research, bolstering the durability of a brute, yet preserving just enough intelligence to wield firearms, their armed cannons transforming each of them into a mobile artillery platform. Their impressive firepower allowed the Epsilon forces to push past the initial hammer defenses. A team of infiltrators arrived soon after, sneaking into the airbase to disable the Iron Curtain device shielding the next blockade. Aid arrived for the proselyte in turn, giving them just enough push to overwhelm the airbase. The Foxtrots were quickly assembled and ordered to fire at the Centurion. To the proselyte's surprise, the crawler was encased in a shield upon the jet's arrival. There's another Iron Curtain device nearby. An assault through the air is now all but futile. This, however, was not the end. Ideally, he wished things wouldn't come to this, but Yuri is determined to destroy that vexatious machine today, no matter what method he must take. No more tricks, no more half measures. With the Chinese airbase down, they could finally deploy the creation on site, and she shall take over as the scientist's new executioner.
Don't worry, liver won't hurt you. Too much.
The battle begins anew. Just as Rinru thought she'd be safe from her pursuers, the Epsilon super soldier, whom she had learned of from what little they know of the events of Totoya, is sent in to end her life. This is a force far beyond what she's prepared to deal with, and Yunru quickly retreated into the base, calling her forces nearby to stall as long as they could until the tunnel is repaired. Just like the intel suggested, small firearms is utterly pointless against her. Countless rounds unleashed in her direction, shrugged off with not even a scratch. Still, they marched forward, continuing to surround her, but even their exosuits couldn't keep their flesh from violently combusting under the explosive darts. The Nuwa cannons came next, hoping their heavy armor would survive longer against the constant barrage. But Libra responded by unleashing a wholly different ability, a powerful anti-gravity field, easily capsizing the bulky frames of the heavy tanks. Tearing her way through the Chinese, Libra didn't take long before she destroyed the Iron Curtain shielding the Centurion and the base defenses. But while the Iron Dragons lost their shields, the Centurion remained protected. A built-in Iron Curtain generator, but only effective against the darts. Aided by the remaining Foxtrots, Libra stormed the facility, brutalizing all who stood between her and the Centurion. Point blank, and the anti-gravity field was unleashed once again, toppling the massive siege engine in one motion. Another trick. Yunru was not inside the machine at all. The designer mustn't leave alive, and the creation gives chase.
Hey, come out to play. Just die already.
No. The EMP. It's damaging Libra's cerebral suppressor. Proselyte, restrain her immediately!